So, stacking is a lifestyle. It's not just like all about a brand. It's not, we don't just say it, it's a lifestyle. It's all about stacking knowledge and stacking your money up. Um, for stackers only, like I wanted it to be all about, finding more income streams, expanding your skills, leveling up your knowledge, and leveling up your finances. So, I've always had that thirst for knowledge, and I've always been that person that's like always wanted to know more. I always want to know more. I always want to know more. So I decided to start something for us and for everybody to kind of use as a tool. And this month we're going to touch on new growth. And new growth is all about, new growth. That's what it is. It's about planting seeds and watching new things grow. And, just basically starting something new in life, not just in your garden. Okay, we got a couple more people in here. Joshua Marshall. What's up, Josh? Let's see. I believe everybody should have a self sufficient attitude in their lifestyle. I believe everybody should be self sufficient. Um, you should be able to do things on your own without the help of anybody else. I'm not saying you should be able to do everything on your own, but I think a lot more people would benefit from knowing how to do just basic things on their own, like growing their own food and just like basic things like that. So, what led me to doing this is I wanted to know the process behind my food. I wanted to know the process behind what it took for my food to go from seed to on my plate. So, I backpedaled all the way and I just kind of taught myself how to grow my own food, how to grow just the little things. I started off with the little things. So, of course, I don't have my own farm and I don't have 100 acres to put down, you know, plots and plots and plots of food. So I decided I was just going to go with uh, teaching myself how to do the basics. So I started off with basil and tomatoes and peppers, just kind of like in my house. And I started off doing hydroponics. So I'm gonna touch a little bit more on hydroponics a little bit later in the slides, but I started off doing hydroponics and I just kind of went from there and just taught myself everything. All right, so a lot of people don't know that growing their food can be very simple. A lot of people think that it's all about big farms and big equipment, and the knowledge just isn't there for them to do it on their own, that they have to buy everything from the grocery store. But growing your food can be super simple, and you don't need a yard to do it. You can do it indoors, you can do it on your balcony, your patio. You can, if you do have a yard, you can put a little garden plot out there. So it's just a good thing to know. All right. So there's a couple different ways that you can grow your food at home. There's like the traditional seed and soil, which is the way a lot of us know about gardening and know about planting our own food. There's container growing, which is basically container, a potted plant, um, plastic container. Some people start with solo cups. Let's see, we have hydroponics, which is without soil, my favorite. And then we have aquaponics, which is still without soil, but that's with fish. And then you have vertical growing and aeroponics. And then, I mean, there's a lot more other ways to grow, but these are kind of like the most popular ones. There's a couple more, but I don't want to touch on all of them. I only want to touch on a couple of them. So, all right. So the first one is traditional seed and soil. This is probably where a lot of people get their start. Large family farms, you got backyard grows. Some people have community gardens, community plots. But this is traditionally all outdoor growing, basic stuff, seed and soil. Uh, One thing I wanted to touch on with traditional seed and soil, because I mean, there's so many things you can go into with it, but for people that want to get started with seed and soil, I highly suggest them to check out the USDA plant hardiness zone map. You can Google that. And basically, what this tells you, you put in your zip code for where you're going to be growing your plants. And what this tells you is it tells you what zone you're in. And once you get that zone, you can go research the zone, and that it'll tell you basically what grows well in that area and in what seasons. So, highly suggest everybody go do that and check it out, because it's really, really good knowledge to know. It's how people figure out, that oranges grow well in Florida and peaches grow well in Georgia, things like that. Container growing. So this is super, super popular. People with balconies and patios, but like not really a lot of yard space. So you can use just about any container you can find, as long as it doesn't really, add to what was I gonna say? As long as it doesn't add to the what's it called? What was I gonna say? As long as it doesn't stop the it doesn't stop the roots from breathing. Sorry, I'm getting a little brain fart right there. But as long as it doesn't stop the roots from breathing, and it needs to have holes for drainage at the bottom and maybe on the sides closer to the bottom, so that it can drain. The reason this is because if the roots sit in the water, it'll cause root rot. And then when they sit in the water, they don't breathe as well, and it'll cause the roots to start to decay, which is called root rot. So whenever you do this, just make sure like you have like maybe like a draining tray up under the container, or you're outside in an area where you don't mind it draining, and you make sure you have drainage holes the uh, so that the roots can breathe. They can drain out all that water that you're dumping in there. Trust me, you don't want root rot. All right, so now this one's my favorite, hydroponics. That's my picture on the right. That's me. uh, Hydroponics is basically the process of growing plants without soil as your medium. And your medium is basically any material you use to grow your plants. If that picture on the bottom left down there, that's basically showing you like a sideways view of rock wool. That's one of the mediums that you can use to grow it in. Uh, what rock wool does is it basically helps it kind of retain moisture. It drains it as well, but it helps it retain moisture, and it kind of helps the seedlings get their start. This is one of the mediums that people use instead of soil. Some other mediums that people use instead of soil are also going to be uh, the vermiculite, clay pebbles, which is what you see on the right hand side there in my hydroponic unit. Clay pebbles basically kind of help the root system form, and it also allows it to drain down there. Then there's also cocoa chips, also known as like cocoa fiber, and then you have rocks, and then perlite. All right. Then let's see. Before I go on, I want to go ahead and touch on perlite and vermiculite. So perlite basically allows for better drainage as a medium, and vermiculite retains the moisture. So perlite, drains it off, and vermiculite retains it. Okay, so usually people don't use them separately. They tend to take kind of mix it together, then use them, like kind of like 50-50, or some people have their own little mixture that they use. But for the most part, vermiculite and perlite are used together and are not used separately. All right. Let's go on to the next one. All right, so I decided to show you guys. This is my actual grow that I did last year. You're welcome, Zach. This is my actual grow that I did last year, basil. The first picture on the left is going to be about 2 to 3 days after I planted the basil seeds. So what I did is I soaked the rockwool cubes in pH balanced water to kind of get them up to speed and like kind of where they need to be for planting. and then I put about 2 seeds per rockwool cube in each one, and then they're in what I like to call, or what is called, a germinating tray, and they basically has a humidity dome that goes on top of it. You could probably see it in the third picture over there. It's a plastic dome that goes on top of that black tray that you see there, and there's a heating pad. You can see the heating pad's cable in the last picture there, but there's a heating pad under there that kind of keeps the bottom a little bit warm. So what you do is you spray and you kind of put water in there and you rock the tray back and forth to kind of get the rockwool cubes on the bottom, get them wet, and then you spray the tops. The rockwool cubes, what they do is they absorb the water up into the plant and kind of feed the roots of the plant. So the second picture is after about a week. They kind of look like little mini 4-leaf clovers if you get a glimpse at them at a certain angle. And then the third picture is about a little over 2 weeks in. They get pretty big pretty fast. Basil is done in about a month. And those little white pieces of paper almost that you see over there, kind of almost like cardboard paper that I kind of got cut out, those are to prevent the formation of algae. So when you have moisture on top of the rock wool like that, and then constant like lights on them, what happens is algae starts to form on top. It's like green and slimy. So what you do is you put these little pieces of cardboard on top of them like that, and it basically blocks, the light from hitting the rock wool, but it doesn't block the light from hitting the plant. And from that point on, it just allows it to grow up. And then after a while, you can cover it up with clay pebbles, which I'll show you in the next slide over. All right, so in this slide here, on the left-hand side, you see what I like to call, there's more people, okay. Didn't know more people joined us. Left side was what I like to call like the baby roots coming out, little hairs at the bottom of the roots. It's the bottom of the rockwool cube. Basically, if you look up under my hand, you see that there's jars that I put these cubes in. As they get bigger and the roots start to poke out like that, they need water and they need nutrients. So in these jars, what I do is these net pots, the little black cups that you see in there, the mesh cups, I fill them up to about the bottom of the net cup. So there's just maybe like a little bit of water trickling in the bottom of the net cup. And then I put the rockwool cubes, the plant, right on top, so the rockwool cube can soak up what little water that it's getting. And then I keep, kind of cleaning out the water every now and then, cleaning out those jars. And what it does, it basically like boosts the growth of the basil. So that's about 3 weeks in that I do that. At 4 weeks, about 3.5 weeks, I switch them over to my hydroponic system that you see in these last two pictures. Put the pebbles over them so I can remove those actual little cardboard strips. So the algae doesn't really touch the rock wool anymore because they're completely covered with pebbles. And if you look closely on the middle picture, you can see roots are coming actually out of the top of the rock wool cube there, and as well as the bottom. So when they go into this system here, pebbles on top, you put them on the bottom, you just fill the pebbles all around. As you see, like right there in the left picture where they're empty, you basically just fill those up with pebbles as they grow a little bit bigger, and you keep them watered up top. I spray them up top a little bit, mist them a little bit, but for the most part they get water down below in that system because I fill it up with water, and I make sure it's filtered. It has a water pump in there and everything. And finally, in the last picture, we got about 4.5 weeks. I want to say 4.5 weeks. They get pretty big. After about 3.5 weeks, they grow like crazy, and you can just pick leaves off and eat them, and it'll just keep growing back. So these are things that you can keep growing for a little bit and enjoy for a while. All right. So the next kind of growing. Hold on, let me sip some tea. All right, so the next kind of growing that I want to talk about is aquaponics. And aquaponics is very similar to hydroponics, except you add the part about raising fish in there. So it's hydroponics plus aquaculture. And the way they do this is they set up one tank system for the plants, almost like a hydroponic system, like you saw mine. Imagine a tank system like that, and then a actual like larger size tank up underneath or to the side of it, depending on how they have it. You can do a bunch of different ways, but they set this up. They set up a tank system, and they have certain species of fish in the tank. And what they do is they allow the fish to, they feed the fish and they let the fish waste pump into the tank where the plants are. And see, what happens is microbes basically form in the roots of the plants. And microbes are really beneficial bacteria to the plant. So they form in the roots of the plant, and they convert the fish waste into beneficial food for the plants in the water. And basically what happens is the plants grow like crazy. You filter the water back down into the fish tank for the fish to basically live in and survive in. And it's basically a recycling ecosystem. Now, a lot of these systems, some people, they switch out the water, they clean out the tanks every now and then. But for the most part, this is a recycling ecosystem as long as you have quality functioning pumps and quality functioning filters. And for the most part, I mean, you can do this on a small scale like you see in this picture with, I know a lot of people have large size fish tanks in their home. Think of that, a large size fish tank in your home and a smaller growing tray in your home, like maybe in your garage or something. This is how most people set these up. But on a larger scale, I've seen, if you go on YouTube, you can look this up. You can look up aquaponics on YouTube, and you'll find thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of videos of people with like Olympic sized pools full of fish, and then maybe an acre, or I don't want to say an acre, maybe like half an acre of food in a greenhouse is growing, and they have all kinds of PVC pipe running in and out of the system, and they got everything set up, like the whole setup, and they're able to feed their family not only off the fish that are living in the system, but off the produce that they're growing from the fish in the system that they set up. Now, a couple of the fish that you can do in an aquaponic system, you can do catfish, you can do perch, you can do rainbow trout, you can do sunfish, and there's a form of cod, I think it's called Murray cod. You can do that kind of cod as well. And certain kinds of koi fish if you want to do koi fish. But koi fish are good for outdoor ponds if you want to do a koi fish pond. But I mean, for the most part, aquaponics is done indoors. But there are some people that do aquaponics outdoors. All right, vertical growing. So a lot more people are going to start hearing about vertical growing more so now than before, just because of the growing population and more people being added to this earth and the space and larger cities being taken up. Vertical growing is basically the practice of growing stacked, like in layers, up and down. So people do towers. Some people do just going up one vertical wall. People do this indoors. Some people do this outdoors. As you can see in the picture on the left, they do that one outdoors. And there's many different ways to do this, but basically vertical growing is almost like a hydroponic system, but in this kind of system, there is no tank. They basically have like a filtration system that they run a bunch of tubes and run the water, and it kind of drains off on its own. And in some of the systems, they do recycled water. So some of the systems, they get all the water to come back through the system using, filtration pumps and everything like that. So, I mean, definitely check out vertical growing. You can do a tower in your kitchen, a small little system. You can do one in your garage. Just depends on how you want to do it with lights and everything. All right. We are at Aeroponics now. Now, aeroponics is probably my favorite behind hydroponics, just because of the simple fact it's just like really some like the high tech system, and it kind of involves a little bit of science and thinking, and it's really unique. It also uses like 90% less water than growing with traditional soil outside. So it's very, very eco friendly when it comes to that aspect. So aeroponics is basically a grow system. If you look at the picture and kind of follow along, a grow system where the roots are like basically hung up and they're suspended over a misting system, and this misting system delivers nutrients and water to the roots of the plant. And this is done without a medium. And I know you're like, wait, how do you plant the seeds in this? Blah, blah, blah. So, what happens is for most people, when they do this on a smaller scale, they basically take their seeds, and the way that they basically get their seeds to germinate is they put it in a paper napkin and allow that root to start to come out, a wet paper napkin, and they allow that root to start coming out. And when the root has come out significantly to a point where they can stick it through a hole, that hole there at the top, where you see that line where the green is, they can stick it up there and hang it suspended, and the misting system hit it, then it's okay. A lot of people do it that way on a smaller scale. On a larger scale, it's done in some other ways, kind of almost similar to this. But what they do is they take that little bitty seed that's sprouting out of the napkin, right? They put it in some a perlite and vermiculite mixture, and they let it kind of go up they let it kind of grow, get the root system a little bit more developed. And this is in a more kind of, not, I wouldn't say like a do it yourself system. I mean, this, you could do this in a do it yourself system if you want to, but I mean, this is more what they do on a larger scale. But they start them off in perlite and vermiculite. They let them kind of get some roots growing a little bit, and then after that, they pull it gently out of the perlite and vermiculite mixture. Pull it gently out, kind of shake it off. You get some clean water, maybe some distilled water, and you just kind of give it a little wash in that distilled water. And then what you do is then you put it into the system. That way, it's a little bit easier for the roots to get hit by the mist. And then there's two kind of systems where you can do this. Most of the people that do it themselves and build these aeroponic systems, they do a low pressure system. And a low pressure system is basically one water pump, and it kind of sprays the roots. It doesn't really mist it, because low pressure water systems don't have enough water pressure to produce true mist. And true mist is basically like the mist that you see kind of almost at the grocery store or something in the produce aisle, like that actual mist, like there's always water particles in the air. And that's what true mist is. So high pressure systems are any systems in the professionals use in aeroponics, like on a larger scale. What they use are 60 to 90 psi systems, and 60 to 90 psi is the perfect pressure for the mist to come out the way it needs to come out. Because in aeroponics, what you don't want to do is ever dry out your root system. Your root system always has to be moist, and it always has to be watered. So in a high pressure system, there's always mist in your system. It's a closed system, so there's always mist in the air. There's always nutrients being provided to the roots. So the only con to the aeroponic system is, even though could be a super automated system, you just plant the seeds and drop them in these, plant the seeds, let them grow a little bit, drop them in the system, and then totally automate it from there on out. The only catch 22 is if the power goes out and your roots haven't been watered for a couple hours, they will dry out. There is no medium, there is nothing to retain that water for them. So that's like really the only con to this system. Like if you're not on a right misting schedule, you can deal with plants dying. So this is something I would do after I kind of get the hang of hydroponics and a little bit more into urban farming. All right, anybody have any questions? I can only see them on Facebook right now. No questions? Let me see. Wait, am I in the? Thank you. I Josh Ali. That's a dope name. You're welcome, Shane. Nobody has any questions? Did I explain stuff really well? Yes, you can eat the fish in the hydroponic system. Any points? Let's see. Who said that? What was the name of the pump you used for your hydro setup? Give me like 5 minutes and I'll look it up for you. I got you. When you put the cardboard paper sheet on the block growth of algae, is it necessary to replace it after so many days? No, you don't have to replace it. The algae doesn't really grow on there. Once you see a little bit of green algae, um, what happens is it doesn't just like grow in super thick. It just starts looking like light green, then it starts to turn like dark green, then it gets start getting thick. So once you start seeing that light green, what you want to do is you want to put that little cardboard piece around the plant just to kind of protect it from the block. Do you have a favorite plant to grow this season? One of my favorite plants to grow. Ooh, let's see. I would say tomatoes and mushrooms because watching both of them grow is pretty amazing. And mushrooms is something that's totally different. Like watching shiitake mushrooms or portobello mushrooms grow is on another level. But okay, let's see. Pointers of soil and ground planting. Shane, figure out your planting zone from the USDA planting zone, and once you figure out your planting zone, figure out what's good to plant in your area, like what is naturally grown in your area, and then figure out what growing season is. Once you do that, you'll be good money. Easy plants for beginners, Zach. Definitely basil. Just do basil. It's the easiest plant for beginners. Go get you some seeds from Lowe's. They're like maybe $2. They give you like 100 seeds. Like I still got some basil seeds from the first time I bought basil, because I bought 3 packs thinking I needed all of that, and they gave me so many seeds, and you only need like 2 seeds per cube. Yes. So thank you for sharing this. Will you share information regarding the tools for planting outdoors in next week's live? Yes. So next week, Rico will be on the live and he will be talking about outdoor planting and watering and transplanting. So definitely tune in this time next week. Fruits and veggies I would definitely start with basil. Um, Start with herbs: basil, chives, cilantro, um, parsley, oregano, rosemary, or maybe start with some lemongrass, scallions. Have you ever tried using seeds from fruits, veggies purchased from the market? Yes, I have. I have tried. It was okay. It wasn't that great. I mean, it was all right. But I did keep some scallions for a really long time. Like they just kept growing and growing and growing, and I would like cut some off and keep them in water, and they just kept growing and growing and growing. So yes, definitely. On grow lights, book a consult call with me, and I'll talk to you about some grow lights. That takes a really long time to talk about. I'm sorry. Or just like look up beginners LED grow lights. That might work. Or like hydroponic grow lights. Did you start the peppers in Rockwool as well? Were they hard to sprout? I did. A little bit. They weren't that bad though. And I did them in solo cups with soil as well. Actually, on my first time, the first time I started peppers, I did them in solo cups with soil, and then I transplanted them into larger containers. Peppers are fun.